Hey, what's up guys? Cameron here with CJR Performance, and today we have the new 2022 Honda Grom we're going to be throwing on the dyno. But first, we have our 2020 Honda Grom that we just put back to completely bone stock, fresh chain, and we're going to see just a dead even comparison between the two. Went through 3 heat cycles just of basically completely cold to hot, shut it down just for idling, and then we put about 30 miles on the dyno with it. So this bike, I believe we were right around 35-40 miles from yesterday's ride. And overall impressions, I really like it so far, but just like the older generation Groms, they need some more power. So let's go ahead and get the pressure set, get everything strapped in, and see what kind of numbers we're making. Alright guys, so we just finished our SF, and here are our final results. We go from an 8.50 up to an 8.53. As you can see, it's very consistent across the entire curve. And that's going to give us a good baseline to compare our 22 with. So remember, try not to get wrapped up in these dyno numbers too much. They're just good comparison and good tuning tools. This dyno kind of reads a bit average. I know guys that have them as low as in the 7s. My old Dyno Jet 200, we would see as high as 9.5 on this same SF in bone stock condition. Probably a little more with the intake mod like that, but let's go ahead and jump into our 2022. I'm gonna throw it on the dyno and get a stock comparison. And tomorrow we're gonna throw on that Yosh, get an intake on here, and see if we can't get a fuel controller as well. All right guys, so we got the 22 on the dyno ready to go, and I'm trying to do everything as constant between the two as I can. We're matched identical tire pressure. The straps are as close as I can get. I'll be standing next to the dyno as you saw in the last run, just to try and keep an extra constant. Surprisingly, sitting on the bike, we're standing next to it. You can see some gains, obviously standing next to it. So once we get finished up on the complete stock baseline, I'm going to take the side cover off, which as a dyno guy, I really like how easy all these panels come off. It's almost like my 110. It's like 2 bolts, the whole side cover comes off. I can work on it really easy. So let's dive into the stock baseline. We'll do the intake mod and see where they stand. Alright guys, so we just got the SF Grom buttoned up, and I want to show you one thing real quick. I made the first 2 passes, and then I realized, you know what, this thing's a 5-speed. We need to make sure that 4th gear on this is close to 3rd gear on that, which is what we had dynoed it in. So you always want to dyno in the closest 1-to-1 ratio, which is 3rd on that bike, 4th on this. But I went ahead and maxed out to the rev limit on each gear just to kind of see what the dyno showed for mile per hour. It's probably going to vary just a little bit for GPS, but first gear 22.5 miles per hour, 36 mile per hour in second gear, 49 mile per hour in third gear, 63 mile an hour in fourth gear, and a whopping 78 mile an hour. That was showing an indicated 81 on there. So I'll be curious what the GPS ends up coming out to as correction. But anyway, the only reason I did that just to kind of verify our apples to apples were as close as we could make them. So moving forward, we're going to show you the final results. These were the last 3 runs. Got an 8.7, 8.7, 8.71. And you'll notice there's a big torque dip right in the middle there. Let's go back to RPM here. And you notice a big torque dip in the middle. Top end flattens out, so I would say there's definitely going to be some good gains with tuning on this bike. And once we overlay it, we'll take all 3 kind of rough in that high RPM area. Let's go ahead and overlay the SF on there. So this bike has quite a bit more top end. I say quite a bit, we're talking almost a horse, even all the way down. So the mid-range and low end is where the SF Grom shines, and that really surprised me. I was expecting the opposite given the bigger crank and smaller bore on this setup, but we'll see how this bike, you know, responds to modifications. We're going to dive into the intake mod for this next video. I'm going to split it up on you guys, and then tomorrow we're going to go ahead and do an unboxing on the Yoshimura. Probably play with an actual aftermarket intake, because the big gains on these bikes are actually in the hose itself, not in that intake mod. There are gains in the intake mod, but not quite as much as the hose. So we're going to dive right into that stuff tomorrow, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, make sure you share it. We'll keep these videos pumping out for you. Thanks.